College is often viewed as a mere institution, a labyrinth of classrooms, textbooks, and endless exams, where our future is shaped. Yet, when we step foot on campus, we realize that we are not alone on this journey. University transcends academia, transforming into a vibrant community where individuals unite. To learn from one another, to grow and to forge unforgettable bonds. It's not always about having a precise plan. It's not always about figuring out. It's not always about reaching the finish line first. It's about discovering what we are truly passionate about. The true essence of college, however, lies beyond the confines of academic pursuits. What truly makes college so special is the life that's lived within its walls. It's about seeing things from different perspectives, exploring unique possibilities, taking on new challenges, finding joy in friendship, embracing individuality, expanding our knowledge and skills, and immersing ourselves in extraordinary experiences. It's a path that teaches us about resilience, courage, and determination. A quest that allows us to pursue our goals with purpose and clarity. A quest that helps us find balance, happiness, and fulfillment. A transformation that inspires us to live with intention, curiosity, and joy. A trail that leads us to a deeper understanding of who we are and what truly matters. It's a journey of self-discovery, where every experience shapes us into the best version of ourselves. We attend college for the education, but what we live with is a treasure trove of experiences that shape us forever. Experience a whole new world of academic excellence in a global environment. Dayanand Sagar University, inspiring future trailblazers today.
Over to you, Bhairavi.
Yes, sir. Good morning and warm welcome to all the distinguished principals and highly esteemed teachers from across Pan India. It's our pleasure to have you all for this webinar under the School Development Initiative program organized by Dayananda Sagar University. Dayananda Sagar University stands as a proud member of the esteemed Dayananda Sagar institutions, a group of renowned for its premium colleges, universities, schools, and international schools. The STIP initiative is designed to empower and invigorate our dedicated educators who play a crucial role in nurturing our young minds. In today's fast-paced world, prioritizing mental health, happiness, and achieving a harmonious work-life balance is essential for every individual. This program is wholly committed to advancing the professional development of our educators, offering a wide range of workshops and training centers. Today's topic on positive education is just not about academics, but it delves deeper into nurturing emotional well-being, resilience, and growth mindset of our young students. It equips them with life skills crucial for personal and societal success. It is a combination of traditional education principles with the study of happiness and well-being. It is with great honor and excitement that I introduce to you our distinguished speakers who will be enlightening us today with their invaluable insights and expertise. Let me introduce you to all our first speaker for the day, Dr. K.N.D. Balak Subramanya Murthy sir, who is a professor of CSE and Vice Chancellor of Dayananda Sagar University. He is former Vice Chancellor for PS University, Bangalore. Sir holds a bachelor's degree in electrical power engineering, master's degree in electrical engineering from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and PhD in computer science and engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. Sir has worked as a research specialist in parallel computing at New Mexico University, State University, USA. Sir is also a former member of Karnataka State Higher Education Council and the Academic Senate member of IIIT Dharwad. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, madam.
Yes, it is a great pleasure that I introduced our second speaker for the day, Dr. Tithi Bhatnagar. She is a psychologist by training, a well-being and a happiness researcher, and a teacher by profession, and a certified positive psychology coach by practice, who is trained with Dr. Robert Biswas Jr., USA. Her doctoral research was in subjective well-being, that is SWP, from the Indian Institute of Technology, Mumbai. Her professional experience is a mix of industry, freelance consulting, academics, and trainings and advisory roles as well. She is currently working as an associate professor with Jindal Institute of Behavioral Sciences, OP Jindal Global University. She's an adjunct faculty at the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Consciousness Studies Program, Bangalore. She has trained around 1,000 plus teachers, principals, students, government officials, and executives on several topics of importance. A gold and silver medalist for her master's and bachelor's respectively, and ICF certified coach in training. She is a member of American Psychological Association, that is APA, and Indian International Society of Quality of Life Studies. A warm welcome to you, Dr. Tithi Bhatnagar, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Now I would request Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, to deliver a welcome note and set the context. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Good morning, everybody. Respected co-panelists, Madam Dr. Tithi Bhatnagar, the Chief Marketing Officer, Professor Srinivas Shinde, Madam Bhairavi, and also my faculty colleagues from to be a part of this session. Most importantly, I would like to thank each one of you for time of your busy schedule on a Saturday morning to be with us for a common cause. I think all of us are teachers. Basically, we are interested in the well-being of our students and well-being of the country as well. This program has been brought to you by Dayananda Sagar University under Student Development Initiative Program. The Department of Admissions from Dayananda Sagar University has been organizing these programs in the last three and a half years to exchange a few ideas and also connect you to the experts to get some clarifications, also to get some understanding of the various topics. The topics which have been proposed in this SDIP program are mostly of new origin or of recent origin. I think these kind of things were not heard when I started my career about 40 years back. I think when I did my started my teaching career, these terms were not even heard of. I think now the aspects of the wellness and the positive education, all this of recent origin. Probably the expert would tell you more about it when exactly this was came into existence, why it's so important, and things of type. I'm extremely happy that new topics have been picked up and brought here for discussions. We need to know the various components to reach out to the students and also find solutions so that we are trying to provide quality education and a stress-free education to our students. Coming to the topic of today, role and importance of positive education. When we say positive education, obviously the components of psychology come into play, because education is all about learning newer things and connecting the components that we have learned. That's the whole idea of education, to understand it properly, put them in the right, transform an individual to become a better citizen, also a person who is going to reach out to everybody to help them out under various requirements. Coming to this, positive education is more about psychology, positive psychology. The positive psychology in the education will bring out the strengths and the personal motivation which promotes learning. I think learning is going to become better if we take an approach by incorporating the components of psychology. That's exactly what positive education is all about. That's what I have seen in the internet to understand what positive education is. Second, how does the positive education help the student? Climate, a positive institutional climate, a positive environment, which will make the student to feel confident, to feel capable and valuable. I'm sure these three things are very important. If the environment is really good, the student feels like coming to the school, learn and understand and use. Because the most important thing is to understand and utilize the concepts become very important. I think the school environment has to be really good. For that, what all we need to do? We need to do our best to provide that environment. What is that environment? It is to identify the abilities of a student and provide the motivation. In other words, all the people in the world have equal abilities in terms of the various components. If you consider the ability in various aspects, and more or less the sum total is equal for every individual. That's what has been identified. Some persons may be extremely good in sports, maybe not so good in mathematics, maybe good in something else. The sum total, if you look at, the abilities would be the same, 100%. Therefore, what needs to be done is, we need to create an environment bringing that positive change in the student, making sure that if you are good in sports, what prevents you to become good in something else? Can you provide that small piece of positive motivation? Tell them that you are capable, you can do it. And if something is not going to go well, I think you're almost there. I think you try a little bit, you'll get it. Instead of saying that you can't do it. I think the can't term has to be completely taken out from the school environment. We should say you can, it's possible. Let us try it out. You try this and come back tomorrow. We will discuss. I think the small things from the teachers would provide a positive motivation to the student, where the student feels the environment is really good. I'm being in grade. I'm being motivated. And that's exactly what positive environment is all about. In other words, I consider if the environment is really good, student feels like coming to the class, coming to the school. If the student is not coming to the school, it clearly means there's something wrong with the environment. It's also true in terms of teachers. And I've seen teachers utilizing all the available leaves in the college or in the school, which indicates that the environment is not too great because they're utilizing the leave because they're eligible to utilize it. I think it also needs to be observed as the administrators. We also need to find out why a particular faculty or a particular teacher is using full leave. If at all you provide some leave for the student, obviously it's going to utilize it. Whenever you utilize, probably you need to think over. There must be something which you need to look into. I keep doing this as an administrator because I'm the vice chancellor of the university. I keep observing the patterns of the people in terms of their contributions, in terms of their attendance, in terms of their motivation, in terms of the proactiveness. These are the indications where I identify somebody is happy, somebody is not happy. Whenever I feel somebody is not happy, immediately I call that person and try to talk to them, offer them a cup of tea, and have a casual talk, trying to find out, is there anything that we can do for you? And is everything is okay? We see these kinds of patterns. Is it something which is bothering you? I think this positive kind of dialogues would motivate our teachers. Small freedom and comfort zone, if you provide, I'm sure the lot of good things are going to happen. Because quite often we go by the regimentary rule saying that there's a discipline, you need to follow discipline. 8 o'clock, you have to be there at 8 o'clock. Come what may. I don't care. You have to be there. Up to 5 o'clock, you need to work. I think that is going to make people not so comfortable and also loses the sense of belongingness for the organization. Whenever the sense of belongingness is going to be lost, either for a student or a faculty, I'm sure things are not going to go really well. I think negative education, when you talk about, is exactly that. It's basically a child without this, we are forcing the knowledge on the child without considering the sensory development, without considering the interest, without considering the aptitude. Because we're going to push. It's one-way traffic. I am teaching this, you need to learn. Whether you're capable of learning or not, I don't care. You need to learn. Next day morning, you need to submit the assignment. And we don't even worry about it. Thereby, the student or the person start using the methods which are not to be used. I think in my understanding, that's how the things are going to be. Let me tell you a few things which are an American author and an essayist and a literary critic by name William Deresiewicz. He has written a fantastic book, lots of books, but a lot of good books. One title of one book is Excellent Sheep. He says, the education system, this is the respect to the education across the globe. He says, education system manufactures the students who are smart, talented, and driven. He also says that in the process, we develop a lot of students who are anxious, timid, and lost with the little intellectual curiosity. Intellectual curiosity is lost. Sense of purpose is lost. The education system also tries to push everybody in the same direction, heading meekly in the same direction, great at what they're doing, but no idea why they're doing it. Our education system tries to make the student, how to study is being taught, why to study is not being taught, right? How to solve is being explained, but why to solve is not being explained. That's what the author mentions. Questions of purpose and passion are not part of the syllabus. Therefore, that's exactly what needs to be done. Now, the present education system says education is all about doing homework, getting answers, acing the test, as well as the grades, getting good grades. But majority of the times, we are not using our brains at all. Therefore, the component of using the brain is missing. That's what William Dedikovich mentions. He also says in another book called The Consequences. Present-day education system tries to build the severe competition among the students, among the schools, among the teachers. But in the process, we are not training our students how to face the failure, how to handle the failure. Always the education system teaches the students in such a way that the students are stressed and terrified by the fear of failure. Schools have the positive education has to do the other thing, where we need to teach them how to handle the fear of failure. What failure is all about. There are lots of things which needs to be considered. That's what Professor Dedikovich mentions. I'm sure the expert would talk about these aspects. What is it we can do to provide a positive environment and a good learning environment in a school, learning environment in a college? I keep doing it as an administrator. I keep observing this. I don't talk to anyone, but I keep observing the speed of entry of the people and the speed of exit of the people. The speed with the walk in, the speed with the walk out gives me lots of answers, lots of inputs. I'm sure the administrators need to look at all these things. Nobody needs to come and talk to you about any problem. And in a school, in a class, when I teach, I keep observing the curiosity and the happiness in the minds of the students and the face of the student. If the happiness is more, if they are able to understand, if they're able to reciprocate, their faces glow a little bit. If these concepts are not too good, if they're not unable to understand, their faces will be dull. I keep observing that when I teach in a class. I think some of these small inputs needs to be considered as the inputs for about the environment, the inputs about the ambience that we have provided in the school. Find out how exactly we can change it. Can we bring in an environment where people always feel that it's an excellent environment for somebody to stay and contribute? Once we start providing that environment, there are lots of benefits. What are the benefits? Benefits are like this. There are high levels of attendance and engagement for students and staff. If they're free, if they feel the school is theirs, the college is theirs, obviously they start coming to the office whenever they find time. Whenever they are free, they feel like going to the college. Whenever some relatives are going to come to their house, they say, come, I'll show my school, show my college. That is going to happen. If at all the environment is not up to the mark, they don't feel like coming back to the school at all, coming back to the college, unless required. I think that engagement of the faculty, the affection towards the college becomes very, very important. The other advantage that you also see by providing good environment or positive education or positive environment is that reduce teacher turnover. not many faculty are going to leave. If the environment is really good, if there's a small space for them to operate, I'm sure nobody would like to leave. If the environment is really good, not many people would leave the college or the school for salaries. Salary alone is not the important thing. Then there's an improved academic performance, provided there's a positive environment. You also see there's a lot of respect among the people for each other. They like each other's work. It is necessary to celebrate the success of everybody. I think that environment is what matters. Positive education is all about providing an environment to have that positive psychology in the minds of the people. With these few words, I thank the organizers for inviting me to be a part of this event, and particularly thank the expert who is going to share her experience and expertise in this topic. I'm not an expert in psychology. I'm not an expert in any of these things because I'm a computer scientist. But I strongly feel that small space must be provided for people to work. I don't believe in biometric. I don't believe in attendance at all. I never took attendance in my class. Only when it's required, I take, otherwise I don't take attendance at all. The class is to be full. I used to remember the names of every student. If some student has missed the class, next day I go to call him and ask him, why did you miss a class yesterday? If you're free, come to my office, let me teach you what I have taught in the previous class. I think that's the kind of thing that I mentioned. In last 43 years of my experience, I never had any problem with the student. I never had any problem because all this to be molded the way we want. One word of appreciation, one word of encouragement is what matters. I think that I've practiced it. In my faculty also, I have no problem with any of the faculty. Most of the faculty are really good. And I need to talk to them and find out if there's something I can do for them, if something we can work together. I think these are the 4 or 5 things which I practice in my administrative career. I did not have too many problems in my administration as well. I might have taken few decisions unknowingly, which may not be good. But however, by and large, they know it for sure. Whenever this person is there must be some reason for taking a decision like that. I think there's a confidence they have. I think we need to build that confidence. We need to build that environment in the institution for taking the institution to the next level. And I always feel that we are second to none. Why not we do few things? Why not we bring in that small change in our style of functioning? Every time I keep amending it. My bachelor's today, I've changed a lot. I used to be a very strict teacher in the earlier days. 1 minute, student used to be out of the class. Now, I'm completely a different person. I understood the things why people behave the way they behave. I think it's necessary to understand that. I'll request the expert to take over and tell us more about that. And thank you very much. I wish each one of you best of luck. I think you've been doing a great job. I think the school education is much more difficult compared to the higher education. We are in the other part is much easier. As a school education is very, very tough. I think I wish each one of you best of luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those. Thank you for your words, sir. It was really, enchanting, and we would to share that you have shared your knowledge with us. I would also request all the participants now, if they have any questions, they can please put them in the question and answer box. So, at the end of the session, Madam and Vice Chancellor, sirs, if you have any questions for him, we will answer them. Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Bhairavi, and a very good morning to everybody present here. Thank you, Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, for a wonderful context setting for this talk and for sharing your amazing views I'm sure your faculty must be blessed to have you. So with this, I'd like to start our sharing ideas for today. And let's delve deeper into the concept of positive education. All right. So to begin with, I will like to start this talk with two narratives. One is a story about one student. Now, this student, he has been assigned to a group. He has been given a project to complete, and he has some 7 students working on that project with him. What happens while working is that he faces some kind of problems. He faces some kind of discrimination in the sense that the girls have formed a separate group, and the boys, some of the boys are least worried about the project. Now, this is a sincere boy, and he's struggling to make a contribution onto the slides. And then when he reaches out to the girls, he comes to know, oh, we've already done that. Don't worry about that. But he doesn't want to be a freebie, and he wants to contribute. So he makes some efforts, and then the girls recognize that effort and gives him some 2 slides to speak on. He wants to approach his teacher. So he goes to the teacher. He wants to discuss this problem. The teacher laughs it off. But then he says, it's serious. I really want to bring it up. Every time I'm facing this problem, there are many boys who are facing, but they don't say, girls are bullying us. And the teacher says, no, girls are really good. You should see them from a different lens. It's not like that. And now this boy is left with, what are the options? So the options are 1, navigation. So he does that so that he can justify his marks, which he gets in the project. But at the same time, what are the feelings the boy is left with? What are these feelings that are going to have what kind of impact upon him when he grows up? So there are feelings of, if I go to the teacher is not listening to me. Well, girls are always like that. Girls are always preferred. Girls are given the best. Girls are always justified. Now, let's look another story, another narrative. There is this boy in another school, faces the similar kind of situations, goes to the teacher. The teachers listen to him, and then the teacher knows the other side of the story. So maybe there are more things to what the boy can see. And then what the teacher does is she calls in for the meeting of a group. And she discusses openly, giving every student the chance to speak, a safe space, which has been provided to every student so that they can open up, is very non-judgmental in her approach, and tries to bring this to a close. And the students end up becoming friends of each other. They end up seeing certain things which they're not able to see from their own perspectives, and they develop the other person's perspective. They become more compassionate, they become more empathetic. This is what positive education is all about. So the second side of the story is what we are going to talk today. And as Vice Chancellor Sir has already highlighted the benefits, there's so many nuances that can be a part of this. And I appreciate his bringing up the points that why would somebody really want to belong and go to work every day? So all of this is a part of what we are going to talk about today in positive education. So what is positive education? Now, before I even talk about what is positive education, let me just give you a very, very brief into what is this positive psychology movement all about, because that was also something Sir had brought up. And I think it would be interesting for you all also to have a base of understanding. Now, what happened was that in 1995, there were 2 researchers, Professor Myers and Professor Diener, who came together to write a seminal paper. And they found that the negative states of human mind and human beings that have been studied, that means pathology, which has been studied, the ratio of these two positive states being studied was 17:1, which means for every 17 studies which were available in the journal articles, there was only one study studying positive states of mind. Now, if our entire focus is on negative, our positive is missing somewhere, and we are only focusing on the negative. And that's what society also, in a way, indirectly teaches us, because we don't look at if you get 88 marks out of 100, people will not look at the 88. They will ask you, where are the 12? Where are the remaining 12? So every time the focus shifts from positive to negative. That is when the positive psychology concept started picking up shape. They were just ideas at that point in time, and arguments were being built up amongst researchers that we need to take this up. It was then under the presidentship of Professor Martin Seligman for the APA, American Psychological Association, that he said the theme of my presidential tenure would be positive psychology. And that is when the systematic movement of positive psychology started up. Positive education is one aspect of positive psychology, and this also a lot of work has been done by Professor Seligman and his colleagues. And what they have done is they have used the PERMA model to actually give this concept of positive education and how can we apply it at the school level. What can be the benefits? What kind of exercises can we get into? What can be the model? And that is all that we are going to talk in the next 40 odd minutes, right? So when we talk about positive education, now we're talking about a systematic application of these principles of positive psychology in order to, facilitate this intrapersonal and interpersonal learning. And this, we are not just talking about the well-being of students or of teachers, we are actually talking about the well-being of the entire ecosystem. And what does it have to promise us? Because if we are getting into positive psychology, using positive education into our curriculums, into our school, bringing in this model, how do we think, how can it impact? It can impact in different ways. Not only, again, it's not just students, it's both for students as well as teachers. And what happens is that you become more optimistic. There is a concept of delayed gratification versus instant gratification, and we have studied that in emotional intelligence studies. So, it says that if you know about that famous marshmallow experiment where kids were given marshmallows, but they were told that if you will wait for a certain period of time, we will double these marshmallows for you. Now, some kids, they ate it up instantly. Some kids really waited. They were given temptations, but they waited. And they were studied over a period of time to see that the kids who were having instant gratification, these were kids who were impatient, who were having problems, who some of them even ended up in criminal activities. But the kids who had delayed gratification, they tended to be calmer individuals when they grew up. They were much more responsible, accountable. They were the people who were problem solvers. So positive education is also something which helps in shaping up students as people with delayed gratification, right? It strengthens our willpower. It increases our resilience, and we bounce back after setbacks and achieve greater heights. So that's what resilience is all about. And it also helps us in building these meaningful social relationships, find greater meaning and satisfaction. That means overall, if we can look at it, it's not just about achievement, it's about the well-being of the students. It's about the well-being of the community, the learning community at large. And that is why we find it very beneficial. Now, if we look at it, it results in increased. So what are those typical things? Of course, when we talk about positive emotions, positive engagements, we are talking about strengths. We are talking about relationships. We are talking about accomplishments, right? So students will obtain that ability. So the key point here is that we are not just, they say that, if you focus on the softer aspects, you lose out on the harder aspects like achievement, which is very critical and very important. Like sir also said, our focus is more on grades, right? Look at the CBSE system, the kind of percentages we are giving to the students. They are not ready to take up any failures. Some of my students used to turn up and say, ma'am, you've given me less marks. And I was surprised. He said, I've never gotten less than a 95%, and you're giving me just 80. And I'm like, hey, you've got 80. And why do grades matter that much? And I am not the one giving you marks. You are the one earning your marks. And then, of course, I have the rubric and all the reasons to tell him or her why and where have they lost marks. But look at how the mindset of the child works. It is more competitive in nature. And that is what we want to shift from. We need a paradigm shift. We want collaboration. We don't want that kind of competition. We don't want that kind of stress and burnout for which we are getting our kids ready today. Because the way we are designing this whole race, I would call it a race, right? We are preparing a workforce. But what about the softer aspects? What about their quality of life? What about their knowing themselves? What about their meaning in life? And what about the coping strategies, coping mechanisms? Why are we hearing about so many suicide attempts at the higher educational levels? Because kids are burning out. We are not even realizing, right? So that is why we need these kind of environments in which they can bloom and grow and they can understand what life is all about. Okay, moving on. So a positive education basically has these 4 elements into it. Now, when we talk about the first one, we're talking about PERMA model. We know it's a very famous model which has been given by Professor Martin Seligman and colleagues. They talk about well-being in terms of these 5 things, and PERMA is an acronym, and we are going to dwell into deeper details just in a couple of few slides. We talk about growth mindset, restorative practices, and character strengths. So these are the 4 important elements which the positive education model entails. Now let's look at PERMA model. So PERMA is an acronym where P stands for positive emotions, E stands for engagement using your strengths, right? R for relationships, M for meaning, and A for accomplishment. Now, if we look at PERMA, how can this PERMA model help us in actually, what are the lessons for students then? So if we talk about positive emotions, we are basically teaching them the pleasant life. Anything that makes you happy, which uplifts you, your moods, your emotions, right? It is, you are understanding your feelings. So what are, you know, it's very interesting. People say there are good, there's positive emotion, there's negative emotion. This is just affect, right? And this affect has balance, of course, but this affect is not judgmental that this is good and this is bad. Actually, every emotion is telling you something about yourself. But are we able to make our students understand what that emotion is trying to tell you? So if I'm angry, anger is just an expression, an emotion. But what is making me angry? What's the root cause behind it? Well, if I'm feeling jealous, what is it trying to tell me? It's just trying to tell me that I'm in a situation where someone may be better than me and I need to just get up and I need to equip myself with better resources, better responses, and do something which can help me be better version of myself, right? But are we able to address jealousy in that manner? So first of all, we tend to understand our own feelings. We tend to understand how do we deal with these feelings. When we talk about positive engagement, well, the concept again here is of that we are teaching the students the good life, right? And what is good life? So when you play from your strengths, they are rewarding. Now, if I'm not good at anything and I'm still trying, I'm setting myself up for failure. But if I am good at something and I am trying, I am definitely going to be in a win-win situation. Even if I lose, the learning will be important for me. So my way of thinking will be different, my interpretations will be different, and my well-being will not be compromised. Then we have positive relationships. That means now we are talking about connections. We are talking about relationships, and we are talking about quality relationships. Not every relationship will lead us to a, enhancement of our well-being, because relationships can be toxic. So we are talking about quality relationships here. And that is how we understand what friendships are. How do we nurture friendships? How do we become connected? How can it be a beautiful relationship rather than fighting and struggling every day amongst ourselves? Positive meaning is about that purposeful life. So we need that purpose in life, right? That means, how are we contributing? How are we becoming a better person? How are we thinking about not just ourselves, but we are developing an extended concept of self. And finally, positive accomplishments. We are teaching the contented life, right? We are talking about satisfaction here. Okay, I did not get a major role in the drama I was so aspiring to, but I got a small role. But now how can I make an impact with this small role? Can we teach our children to think on those lines rather than becoming, starting to be cranky, whining, jealous, angry, upset? I will never take a part again in any competition. Rather than this mindset, can I have a different mindset? So this is the PERMA model, and this is the application of the PERMA model in school settings. So now for educators also, it provides, because it's basically based upon the social emotional learning framework. And it's so you just don't learn because of cognition. You learn a lot when cognition is in combination with affect, right? So that means when your brain is working, but your emotions are in tandem with your brain, learning is way better as compared to when only one is working at it. So in doing so, the goals of the model and the expected student outcomes, they ensure that there is emotional learning. So you're attached to that learning. You have a pleasant associative memory with what you've learned. And what will happen then? Of course, there'll be increased positive emotion, right? Increased engagement, increased positive relationships, increased sense of service, increased accomplishment. So I think the USP of positive education is we are not at all undermining the concept of achievement. We are bringing the concept of achievement in collaboration with well-being. So if we have well-being, we are happy and we are achieving, we will achieve greater heights. So it also manages the stress. And you have a quote by Seligman himself. I want you to imagine that schools could, without compromising, either teach both the skills of well-being and the skills of achievement. I want you to imagine positive education. So he's a big proponent and, of course, the propounder of this concept of positive education, right? So if we take this, what are the benefits from evidence? We find that academic performance of a group which was actually subjected to interventions using positive education frameworks, they performed way better than the students of the control group where these were not given, right? So there's greater motivation to learn. There is your own approach, your attitudes, they change for the good, right? So there is increased time devoted to schoolwork, there's more positive behavior, there's better attendance. There are fewer negative behaviors, for example, disruptive classroom behaviors. You can take care of that, right? Non-compliance, delinquent acts, aggression, disciplinary referrals, and of course, there was less emotional distress. We as educators, we always need to remind ourselves about one thing. When we are dealing with these young minds, whether that is school education or whether that is higher education, we are touching lives, and knowingly and unknowingly. And I completely empathize with all of us here in the room. I am also an educator. But the thing is, sometimes we have our ups and downs, but we should never forget that one word from us can change the way the person behaves. One word from us can shape up somebody's personality. One word of us has the power to make up or break up a young mind. So that is something we need to be really careful about. And that is also what this concept helps us to keep reminding ourselves about. It helps us to behave in a certain manner that we can actually shape up good thinking, responsible, happy individuals who are going to make a better society for tomorrow. So that is something which is important. And let's think about this example, right? If we say, the memory of a favorite teacher. Now, if you have bad memories about your school, and if somebody says, okay, the memory of a favorite teacher. Now, what kind of feelings, what kind of emotions is it going to? It's definitely positive emotions are going into, they're going to come up, right, for you. So then that means that teacher must have likely used the practices and principles of positive psychology. And what are some of them? They may have focused on your emotional development, teaching how you replace negative with positive, and even the imagination. The moment you think about that teacher who really you feel happy thinking about, or who has given meaning to your life, you get a smile on your face, right? It's a pleasant memory. It engages you by noticing your strengths, because they have always focused on your strengths, helping you find those intrinsic meanings for your efforts and applauding your accomplishments. See, that's why I'll also tell one thing here. Language also plays a very important role. The moment I say to somebody, okay, so these are your strengths and these are your weaknesses. Imagine I say, these are your strengths and these are your developmental areas. How would the brain function? The moment I say these are your weaknesses, I would say, oh, well, then if that's the stamp I'm getting, I can't do anything about them. Well, they're my weaknesses. I'm not good at it. I can't be good at it. But the moment I say these are your developmental areas, it tells me, oh, so I can grow on them. Well, let me try to make the effort. The effort must be worth it. So you know how language shapes up your thought process. Okay, tell me what is good and what is bad. Hey, you are good, you are bad. No, we cannot bucket people like that. But the moment we say, okay, tell me what went well, what did not go so well, the entire thought process changes. My way of thinking changes. And the more positive I am in dealing with others, even if they're negative, they will also stop for a minute and see whether they may want to give me a good response, a positive response. So it's also like a chain of goodness, right? I pass it on to somebody, somebody passes on to somebody, somebody passes on to somebody. So those are thoughts that we are talking about here. Now, a very interesting study that they did actually to try out their frameworks was done in the Geelong Grammar School in Australia. And they used this model. So the model was about learn, live, teach, embed, then again, learn, live, teach, embed. And this is how flourishing happens. And what are the components? We are talking about positive purpose. We are talking about positive relationships, positive emotions, positive health, positive engagement, and positive accomplishment. So anything we want to do at the student level cannot be directly done at the student level, which would mean, first of all, our teachers have to be a part of that whole program. So the teachers first have to learn, right? So the learn here means that the teachers underwent some kind of workshops, trainings, how to become, positive in their whole curriculum, designing the curriculum in that way, delivering the curriculum in that manner, evaluating the curriculum in that manner. So how would it impact the students? So this very interesting study was done. And so this is what the model looks like. And this is taken from below, you can see the reference. It's taken from Norrish et al.'s paper. So, and these are things that happen, right? So we've already talked about some of them here, but it's how you can use your strengths to, achieve that kind of flourishing at the top level. Now we come to strengths. Now, obviously, when we talk about strengths in the context of Martin Seligman, we're talking about the VIA character strengths. There are, so values in action. VIA means values in action, right? And there are so many models of strengths available to you. But in VIA, I think what is important is they zeroed down to finally 24 character strengths, and each one of these are, they're different degrees, and they give every person a unique character strengths profile. Not only that, so some of, you can see on your screens, these are basically the bouquet of strengths, right? Now, I may not want to really read them, but you can see them. It's everything from gratitude, hope, humor, to humility, modesty, to leadership, fairness, to curiosity, creativity, right? There are these 24 signature strengths, right? Now, how can we actually use them? So say, for example, I want to design some kind of a strengths program in a school. What do I do? So let's look at this example, and maybe it will give us an idea. At the first level, I would want to develop a character strengths language and a lens for every student, right? So what you can do is you can tell the students to come up with their own words to identify what they admire in their classmates, right? And then they compile a complete list of such traits. And these traits obviously have participation from every student. Then these students are introduced to the VIA classification. So what they do now is they compare their list with the VIA list, and then they understand. So now what is happening here is this idea of characters, strengths being common across is being developed amongst the students. So that is the first thing that can be done. Second, they can recognize and think about these strengths in others. So what you do is you assign a secret partner to every student. So you pair these students up, right? For maybe over a week, and students are then asked to observe and secretly record any examples of those strengths that they've seen in that student, and then any evidence of any positive outcomes. So, when she said thank you, and then the other person who was becoming angry, she smiled. So what was the outcome of what they observed? Now, what will happen through this activity is that it will build awareness of strengths and more generally of positive events, because now they are recording those positive events, which are registering in their mind as well. Then at the third level, what you can do is you can encourage them to practice, recognize, and think about their own strengths. So what you do is you receive feedback on their strengths from, say, 4 or 5 people who know them in context. So about those 360-degree assessments where we take all the stakeholders into account, and they rate you, you rate yourself, they rate you, and then we correlate the ratings, and we come to know how accurate this is, right? What will it do? It will reinforce the importance of using strengths and develop those lenses of looking at strengths, and also to identify and reflect upon strengths. At the next level, what you could do is now practice and apply these strengths. So what the students would do is they'll develop a concrete plan for, say, over a period of time. You define the timeline for them, and then you identify specific ways in which each of these strengths in respective settings, whether inside or outside of the school, how are they functioning, right? And what will happen through this? They will be aware about their signature strengths and also the various benefits it can bring to them. Finally, what you could do is you could identify, celebrate, and cultivate group strengths now. So from individual, now we are moving at the group level, right? So the students and the teacher together, they will conduct that group strengths audit. So they identify various ways, and the signature strengths are already in use. What happened, what can be the outcome, what did the student do? You have a lot of idea now. A lot of data bank has been prepared, right? And then you identify those new ways in which now groups can come together and use these strengths, and how the class can actually benefit from each other's strengths. So rather than rather than playing from somebody's negative for your benefit, how do you actually bring a common positive, which takes you to a larger community achievement and happiness? So that's just one example of how, strengths interventions can work. Now, if we look at, again, some research evidence, we know that they have yielded a range of positive outcomes. What are they possibly? So there's a lot of school-related well-being, which, of course, is a benefit. There is positive classroom behavior. Yeah, there's a nice quote. They say, you will hate some people because you don't know them, and you will never know them because you hate them. Right? Now, what is happening in this positive atmosphere is we are getting to know people. And the more we get to know people, the more we get to know their circumstances, we tend to be empathetic, compassionate towards them. And we have a better understanding of our own sense of being. And that is what we are, developing amongst these young minds. Imagine a whole shift from how the society has taught us to be to what actually, how beautiful it can be, right? So, and there will be achievement, of course. I mean, together, if we are moving, we have the right intentions, we are helping each other, where can we be, right, in terms of achievement? So other researchers have shown that, the outcomes are in terms of perseverance, social intelligence, there's more enthusiasm and zest, there's love of learning, there are positive moods at the school level, right? We develop these skills for learning and achievement, and they also act as buffer against, they help us manage and overcome problems. Coming to the mindset, now we're talking about mindset. So what is mindset? So there's a lot of research which, the famous researcher for mindset is Carol Dweck. And she and her colleagues, they have studied for over a period of time, ample studies, ample evidence for us to know that there are two types of mindsets. One is the growth mindset, the other is the fixed mindset. So things that we do, attitudes that we have, and they are very key in, how do we grow? Do we grow positively, or do we have a thwarted growth, right? So let's begin with fixed mindset. So in fixed mindset, I know I don't want to change. No, even if my things are not working, problem is with outside people, it's not with me. I am doing well. I am not going to change even if I'm wrong. Now, this mindset is not helping you because you will not look out for things that you may not have known up till now. It will also not help you because you will not grow. It will also not help you because you will not change. And if you will not change, things will not change, right? So you will be in denial, and in denial, there is no scope of any action. So what happens is that people believe that attributes such as talent, intelligence, certain things are very fixed. Now, let us do some kind of looking within as teachers. Don't we develop prejudices at times? Don't we develop stereotypes at times? वो तो ऐसा ही है. He will be doing like this only. He has this attitude problem. No, he must be lying. He's absent because he just doesn't want to come. But I know many of the times we are right. It's not just being prejudiced, it's also a judgment because of the observation, because of the data points we have. But how about becoming non-judgmental? How about becoming, assigning no value to that, And how about giving that kind of impression to the student? It's safe to talk to me. I will understand you. At least I will try to. Look at the change that it can bring, the power of the change it can bring. So what happens is that this mindset is something that it happens with everybody, with parents, with management, with teachers, educators, with students, everybody, right? When we talk about a growth mindset, we are basically embracing these challenges, because the moment the challenge comes, we say to ourselves, okay, let me see what's in there for me, right? We set more challenging goals for ourselves. We persevere with these challenges. We ask for help and advice. We don't become stubborn in not asking for help and advice. We act on feedback. We just don't become very uncomfortable with the feedback, or we don't take a setback and say, oh, well, I was criticized. We look for constructive feedback, right? And then definitely we attribute success or failure to our sense of efforts, not to external conditions, and we become a better version of ourselves. There was also a very interesting study that happened, which told that it is not just about teaching the growth or the fixed mindset and its principles to students and working upon some interventions to develop growth mindsets, because sometimes it's also the role that the teacher plays, which is very important. So in a study, it was found that despite all the controls, excellent design of the study, there were no significant results shown in the difference pre and post between students. And when teacher's role was taken as a moderator, it was found that teacher's mindset also interferes with the relationship. So me as a student having a growth mindset would not make that much of a significant difference if my teacher's growth mindset is fixed. My teacher's mindset is fixed, right? So my teacher also needs to have a growth mindset. Only then she can provide that kind of environment where I can develop this growth mindset further. So these are very interesting. They have implications, for us as educators. So, all right. So it is important that we learn from feedback, and feedback has to be constructive. We try to become better versions of ourselves. Do not compare ourselves with others, right? We see setbacks as more motivating, so we can achieve more in the next time, and we bring success. We find a process of success and we stick to that. That's about mindset. So for what are some questions that teachers can ask, right? So now look at the levels of these 3 questions. What mistakes did you make today and what did you learn from this? A better question could be, how can challenging yourself in working to learn difficult things improve your abilities? To finally, what are you hoping to learn by completing this task? You are preparing the student to think more, understand more of themselves, and understand their environment, and then the interaction between the self and the environment, and reaching a certain point. So what are some of the practices, right? Of course, first of all, we have to embrace that concept of growth mindset. We have to become open to accepting it. And we need to read more, understand more. We need to really, we need to understand the nuances and develop ourselves. We need to emphasize the learning process. Important is the learning, not the grades. I think that's something we really need to go back to. And this grades and placements and talking about all this is taking away the learning from the whole thing, and introduce that growth mindset with examples. So that is going to work. Finally, we come to the last element, which is restorative practices. We are now talking at a community level, right? So we are talking about processes that will proactively build healthy relationships and a sense of community. And what will happen if this happens? It is going to prevent and address conflicts and wrongdoings. So we can do something to improve relationships between students and educators, and then between educators themselves. So, what happens is that we have to also remember that our behavior is going to shape up the students' behavior. So we need to allow every member of this community to develop and implement what are those core values that we as an organization believe in. So if the school has certain values, we all must be living up to those values. That also can be an intervention in itself, right? So what are these restorative practices? So you address and discuss the needs of the community. So every member, first of all, feels belonged, and they feel that their voice means a lot, and they have that right to speak. They have a forum, safe forum where they can raise their concerns. If they raise concerns, we need to be accepting. We need to be doing something about it. We need to be inclusive. We really need to take the diversity and inclusion into account, right? So we build healthy relationships among different stakeholders. Here, educators and students. We resolve conflict, right? Go back to the story I began with. If we address what was happening in the second narrative was restorative practices, right? We were bringing the chaos to a calm. That is exactly what the teachers did there, right? And the person grew up into somebody who did not have prejudices. If he encountered prejudices, he knew how to resolve them, right? Repair harm and restorative positive relationships, reduce, prevent, and improve harmful behavior. So that's it. And then what are these further benefits of positive education? So to wrap up, basically we are promoting human development, right? We are getting humans to be more human, not machines. We are teaching students how to make themselves happy, and happy individuals will be happy citizens for tomorrow. It helps in decreasing depression. The more connected you are, the lesser the depression, the more sense of support, the more sense of belongingness, and the more sense of happiness. Facilitating academic performance, because we are not just talking about well-being, we are talking about achievement as well, and boosting resilience. So we are not somebody who'd be broken or afraid by things that went off badly or not well, but we are somebody who would come back with a strike and achieve greater heights. Thank you so much.
Dr. Titi, there is a quick question that has come in from
Yeah.
Professor Niladeep Chakrabarti. He says, Namaskar. Can you quickly suggest some of the examples of restorative practices?
Restorative practices would be basically, how do you want to build up that community for yourself? So take, for example, the diversity and inclusion committees that we have, or we can come up with a new committee basically for a school. So it depends upon how does your school or the college or the university helps you and gives you that kind of platform. So you could even have an informal committee set up, say whatever the university, we the DSU, right? And then this we the DSU means that you can come here. There will be people from all levels. There will be professors, there will be students, there will be counselors. They all come together, they discuss. And then slowly and gradually, you make it much more structured. So you may want to have different wings. You may now also want to have representatives who are going to take it up further to the management. You want to have addressers, you want to have community-based programs, you want to have awareness campaigns. What all do you want to do? So it's basically, first of all, is creation of that platform. And that platform can take any innovative or creative shape that you together want to. But important is what? Important is addressers. Importance is being heard. Importance is to, resolve conflict. Important is to bring up, highlight concerns. So those are the things. So anything, so this is one example how you could do it, if that answers the question.
Wait, there's another question here by Mr. Sunil. He says, can we tackle to naughty students by positive education?
Actually, you can. Who are naughty students? Naughty students are those students who really want attention. That means there is some deficit which is leading to that different behavior. And if you can tap into that, they can be the best. All we need to do as teachers is to identify and address. So, and yes, it works because, so I have this theory, I call the integers theory integrated into life. What is that? 2 negatives will add up for sure, but never give you a positive sign. That's integers, right? And a negative plus negative would be a greater negative. It will be added for sure, but only to become a bigger negative. So a negative cannot be removed. You have to replace it with a much bigger positive to make it positive. So yes, it begins with you, and it begins with me, and it begins with you and me.
Yeah, Bhairavi, over to you. I think you have some questions which already You have taken it down from the participants?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
It is a nice session, ma'am. Yes, the first question from one of the participants says, how can positive education be integrated into the curriculum?
Oh,
So I think you need to really sit down and you need to design it. So it has to be like at every step. For example, teaching, you have to have some concepts which are dealing with these concepts of positive education. Evaluation, you have to have those components. So for example, if it's a group presentation, you have to see how collaboration happened. Were they competitive or were they collaborative, right? So even if the presentation wasn't that great, there'll be some marks for that collaboration effort. These are just examples that I'm giving you. I mean, of course, if you sit down on it, it's a big project and it takes time. But every step, you have to have reflective exercises. You have to have some grades assigned to, or some evaluative component assigned to, how are you bringing in these? Because see, students buy-in is also important. And sometimes you have to really tell them we are serious about it. So evaluation is a great way of telling them we are very serious about it. So you practice this, you get this. You're not practicing it, but then of course they don't fail at it. You definitely have more options for them so that they can come. Because if they will see everything that are matters of the heart have to be voluntary. Forceful can only be short-termed. The longer term changes, transformation and effect will remain if they are long-term. So yeah.
There's another question here by Mr. Akash Agarwal. He says he's wishing you a good evening, but I think it's just good afternoon.
Maybe the different times. Good afternoon.
What do you do if a student is regularly absent?
Regularly absent, you really need to then be serious about it. Maybe you have to call the student first. You have to understand, if you see any gravity in the situation, you will have to highlight it to the management. You will also have to highlight it to the parents. And highlighting it at these different levels may be very sensitive. So you need to do your homework well. And you need to just put up data points, I think. And once they are all in, you need to be handling that conversation very sensitively. Yeah.
So here's another question which has come from one of the participants. How can parents and the community be involved in promoting positive education?
To begin with, I feel we can have dialogues and we can have conversation and, webinars like this for parents and, not just teachers and students, but maybe for parents as well. So we need to involve. See, the interesting thing is, first of all, the awareness needs to be raised. We cannot really reach the action. So I love this AAA model of change, which says that you begin with awareness. Unless you have that awareness, you cannot do anything about it. Once you get the awareness, you have to accept it. You cannot be in denial, because if you are in denial, again, no action will happen. If the action starts, it will fail, or it will just be a flop show. So you need to accept, and then only you can be going to the stage of the action. So directly action will not yield any results. We really need to first raise awareness, go to acceptance levels, have dialogues amongst ourselves, freeze upon what do we want to do with our kids, and then go finally to the action level, where we have interventions and we have lots of things which can be, even talks are interventions in that sense.
Bhairav, you're on mute.
Reshmi Chaudhary Gupta ma'am has one question here. She's saying some of the students have fear of examination. We used to motivate them, but still out of fear, they keep doing mistakes. How can we help them?
That needs a paradigm shift for sure. Of course, unless you are helping them with some strategies to cope up with anxiety, that's a different thing. But at the same time, we need a paradigm shift. We are the anxiety givers, the society, all of us, right? I mean, if you'll not do well, what will you do in life? Come on, you have to have good grades. See, that child is doing so well. Not always. Every child is unique. Every child is beautiful. I may not be good in one thing, but I may be excellent in something else. Let me just play from my strengths. And we really need to deal sensitively. So teachers can talk about that, but then just talking will not help, because at the end of the day, it's all grades. Can we develop new models where we are not talking grades and we are talking different other things which makes us human? These grades are making us tabloids. They are making us zombies. They are making us machinic. But I think a paradigm shift, I would definitely vouch for a paradigm shift. I know that's not a direct answer. It's not an easy answer. But I want to raise that kind of reflection and thinking and introspection amongst us educators.
Okay, ma'am.
There's another question here. The participant has not given us the name, maybe you're not registered. Ma'am, should we exclude the board appearing students from all the extracurricular activities in order to make them more involved in studies?
That is exactly what I'm talking about. And if we are doing that, we are just driving them for achievement, competition. No. What is the meaning of extracurricular activities? Of course, I agree. The forced ones, the unnecessary ones, the not so contributing ones, yes, they do not make sense. These are now older children. They are actually they are adolescents, and let's not overdo it. I completely agree with you on that. However, what are co-curricular activities? It's about our overall development, right? So it's not just, I mean, if I have to be just good at thinking, cognition, grades, achievement, I am also somebody like a chat GPT. Sorry, right? What makes me human is understanding others, understanding myself, dealing with my life circumstances. Setbacks happen. Can I deal with them? Or will I just go under my bedsheet and put up a blanket over my head? What am I going to do? So co-curricular activities are always meant for that overall growth. So I am definitely in favor of them. But yeah, let's not overdo them. Let's not be unnecessarily sticky about them, because sometimes, like, some students would make up excuses. I'm so sorry. We had these PT classes when I was a student. Now I realize the importance of those PT, physical training classes, right? And back then we would always go and say, sir, today my leg is hurting. Sir, I will not be able to do stretching exercises. Sir knew everything, so he would make us do it. But that was forced. Didn't last for long. But then you have health problems and you remember PT, sir. Right? So we need to really not force unnecessarily. We need the buy-in of the students. We need to raise that kind of awareness amongst the students. And anything which is unnecessary is really not required at any level, be it boards, be it not boards.
There is one question from our regular attendee participant, Ma'am Sunita Handa. She says, good afternoon, ma'am. When students are regularly disturbing in the class, when they do not understand and they just give smile, so at that point of time, what needs to be done and how to improve the merits of the student in board exam that way?
I know there's such tough questions, because you want to be a great teacher, but you don't have that kind of time and bandwidth, because you want to spend that time with students, but to understand why they are engaging in such disruptive behaviors. But at the same time, you have to complete your syllabus. There are so many limitations. But if you really want to take that extra mile, connect with those students. If they connect with you, these kind of behaviors will automatically reduce. If they don't connect with you, you're in for some trouble, because remember one thing, it's not just me sitting here evaluating you. It's the other side evaluating every single moment, me as well. We often forget that in hierarchies, we think I am the one sitting on this chair, so I am the one, but no, everybody's being evaluated. So we as teachers are also being evaluated. If the student did not get what they wanted from us, we are being evaluated. So can we go that extra mile to connect with those students? Maybe 15 minutes of the class, we can stop the lecture. And if there are so many who are engaging in this kind of behavior, we can say, okay, let's not study, let's talk. Tell me, what's up? What's the joke about? Right? And then you have to come down to that level, their level. And we forget one thing, the way we have been raised, we think that, the elders are elders, and if they're saying something, it's okay. These kids are not our age, and these kids are not our generation. They believe more in friendships and equal partnerships rather than, a teacher being a typical teacher. They want facilitators. So can we be their friends? Can we actually connect with them? Of course, being their friends doesn't mean we'll be. So I can be friendly with you, but I'm not your friend. There are hierarchies. I am not refuting that. We will, of course, keep that line. I will always be your teacher and you are my student. But at the same time, can I come down a little bit to connect with you and see where can I meet you? Does that make sense?
Yes.
This is another one from Archana Mishra. She says, गणित से विद्यार्थी काफी डरते हैं, कृपया समाधान सुझाइए.
किनसे काफी डरते हैं?
One is, I think it is about mathematics. गणित से विद्यार्थी काफी डरते हैं.
Okay.
कृपया समाधान सुझाइए.
So my father is from mathematics. I am not, but I love the subject. Can you make it interesting for them? Numbers से बहुत सारे बच्चे डरते हैं. ये बात बिल्कुल सही है. Statistics, I mean, I'm from psychology. Students are really scared of statistics. But can we make it interesting? Let's not talk about the technicalities. Can we create a storyline where these numbers are all actors in the show? Can we do some kind of creative, innovative pedagogies and actually give them some kind of taste which they would? Today, there are so many websites available which are teaching in a very, so they call them infotainment, information plus entertainment. They bring the two technologies together and they provide that kind of education to students, right? Byju's and all, why are they so hit in the market? Because of this thing that they are doing. They are bringing the concepts to a level of easy understanding and then rising the level up. So can you do that for your students? Is a question now for you, ma'am. Can you do that? So I think those creative and innovative ways will. Please understand, all teachers, we didn't grow up this way, but these kids are all digital kids. They have ample amount of information on Google. So you don't need to give that, but you definitely need to give them those skills where education translates into action and wisdom and can come for their benefit.
Yeah, here's one question from anonymous attendee. What are the practical strategies for implementing positive education in schools?
Yeah, so like I did discuss some of them in the talk, and those are interventions. So, I mean, see, if you just want to talk like a layperson, there are so many. Can you do some exercises that can teach them values? Not teach them values, but teach them the value of values, right? So for example, can you have a blind school day? Now, what happens in a blind school day is you blindfold every student. For those few hours, they will remain as a blind person. It is then that they develop that compassion for people who do not, who cannot see. And then they feel grateful because they can see. How difficult life is, because can you take them one day to underprivileged or to students or children who are not privileged? Can you take them for a field trip there and then let them talk to these kids of their age, and they will understand what privileges and entitlements they have when there are kids who are even striving for one meal per day? So that is how they will develop that compassion for them, right? So engaging them in gratitude, writing every day 3 things that can make you feel, gratitude for something. So gratitude exercises, gratitude journaling, writing your strengths, reflecting upon your day, what went well, what did not go so well. And those kind of interventions can definitely be informal part of positive education. But designing it into the curriculum, you'll definitely need a framework for that, because it has to be more expansive, comprehensive, and impactful.
Another interesting question here. Are there any challenges or criticisms of positive education?
Yes, there are. There are. Everything has a package deal. So nothing is devoid of anything, right? So sometimes, yeah, I would say that there are very subtle differences between, pathology and positivity, right? So sometimes if somebody's suffering and you feel that that person is not making effort, or you want them to try, that is not positive education. So a positive educationist would also be sensitive to the fact that if something is not working, is it just because of the mindset problems, or is it actually that the person has different set of concerns and challenges? So then you need to deal with that person differently, right? And you need to. So if you are not having those kind of sensitivities, that can definitely make it a flop show and lead it to. Those can be the challenges and limitations. No buy-in would always be a big limitation, because again, human behavior is dynamic. Talking, listening to everything is beautiful. But then when it comes to practice, I'm also a certain kind of person. Can I actually take up, despite me not being like that, my personality not being like that? So certain things are malleable, certain things are semi-malleable, certain things are not malleable, right? So what cannot change can also have an impact. So those are a few, I would say, disadvantages. We need to. So I think experimentation is the solution, because you keep on experimenting, you come to know about the pitfalls, you start working on solutions for the pitfall, you become better. So there'll be a version 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth.
In fact, that's a very good way of saying it. We would also recommend many of these schools to look at having some group sessions with the teachers. Over a period of time, we get so busy with our day-to-day work and the periods and the schedules and the examinations that, the point of discussion, because every school, every classroom has got some culture, something that is developed over a period of time.
True.
Over a period of 1 week, 2 weeks of the class, each teacher that gets into a particular class has got a culture, your way of teaching and all that, and your way of explaining.
Certainly.
I think it is recommended that, once in a while, once in a fortnight, let there be an informal session between the principal and the teachers where such kind of things are discussed. See, at the end of the day, we are a part of a big, group of of colleges and universities. One thing that we always recommend is to look at what are the best practices. The best practices that you are able to inculcate are where you are able to understand today what exactly is happening in my class.
Yeah.
Only a teacher knows today what is the good, what is the bad, what is the challenge, what is the kind of trouble that I'm facing. And instead of just keeping it to yourself, it is better that you start putting this across into a group discussion, and there can be good answers coming in from the team. While we say this, there's a very interesting question from Mr. Pranab Dasgupta. How can positive education help the problematic students?
Yeah. So it will take some time, but it certainly can help, because okay, so I have my own issues and I'm behaving very negatively with other students. But if everybody's turning, if everybody's encouraged, feels good about good things, and are turning into more collaborative, more mannerful, more accommodative, more, I would say, responsive rather than being reactive, I'll slowly become an outlier. So if I'm not changing, then definitely I will also not be a part of the mainstream. Now, of course, here the teacher needs to be sensitive, because we don't want to ostracize students just because they're not becoming a part of the mainstream. But how is it going to impact them? Because obviously we are talking about school kids here. They're not hardcore, people who've become something and they don't want to change. But we're talking about young minds which can still be shaped up, having more conversations, everybody talking still nicely with that person. there will be a transformation. Okay, it sounds a little abstract, but it's a slow process and good things take time. So, but it will be impactful. It's more like that non-violence of Gandhiji, Hriday Parivartan, right? Heart transformation. It takes time. It will not come in a day. But if you are consistent, constant, genuine in your efforts, these kids are also going to come onto this side. Most of them, I would say. I mean, some will definitely be, again, having problems, but then we also might want to look into other factors of what could be. I mean, positive education is just one aspect. It's not the complete picture, right? I mean, I could have, say, I could be having a violent personality issue. I could be having a bipolar disorder. I am depressed. I don't know what to do. For 6 months, I can't help it. Now, these are things we are talking about a separate spectrum. We really need to then deal with these students differently. But if they're like everybody else, not having these kind of issues, slowly and gradually, they tend to come here. We have so many examples from stories, movies, right? That happens and the kid moves from there to here. It's about address. I believe every child is malleable. Every child is beautiful, unique. The problems are social, which the kid doesn't know how to handle. It is our job as educators to look into that, be sensitive, and try to talk through them and bring them on this side. So that can be done. It will take some time, of course, if that answers your question.
There's another question from Babita Roy. She says, good afternoon, ma'am. Some students, I think they're from the board students, regularly not showing interest in the subject, especially the language subject. They thought it's just like that. How positive thinking may help them?
I think
positive education may help them.
It's a very relevant question, very relevant. I have seen students not interested in languages, and typically they would not consider them good subjects. They would laugh off environmental sciences, EVS. They would not want that. They would laugh off moral education or values. I think somewhere we have lagged as teachers to get their buy-in. For example, in engineering colleges, there's a lot of restraint in terms of studying HSS subjects, humanities and social sciences, right? Now, I'll just give one example. So the teachers need to talk this language. That's why I'm giving this example. The gas chambers that Hitler built or got built, they were engineering marvels. Not a single accident or incident recorded where somebody died because of leakage of gas outside the chamber. Not one. But were they a humanitarian success? They were a disaster. Why did this happen? Because we didn't think through. What about the ethics, values, human rights? Nobody thought about that, right? And that's why this happened. So the question then is, can I as a teacher, before even beginning to teach, tell my students why it is important to teach this subject and why it is important to learn this subject? Can I bring in why history is often treated very badly, whereas I believe philosophy, history, these are such important disciplines. Had we learned from history, we would not have been repeating the same mistakes as humans. But we are doing that. Why? Because we don't really respect history. And history, geography, bewafa, raat rati, subah safa. That is what we think of history. Sanskrit क्यों पढ़नी है? ये क्यों पढ़ना है? वो क्यों पढ़ना है? Relevant. Because हमारे पास answers ही नहीं है. We don't have the answers to these important questions. Onus is on us. Can we as educators really have that first class of orientation to tell them why this subject is important? Why that's because what will happen if they don't study this subject? First of all, we have to believe. First of all, we have to respect our own disciplines. Because I couldn't become anybody, I became a teacher. Because I didn't get any subject, I took this subject, I don't so love this subject. Okay, I have to teach it, I'll teach it. If this is my attitude, what do I expect from the students? Teaching is never ever a job. It is a noble profession, it's a service. And if every teacher thinks like that, I know I'm talking, I sound like an idealist, I'm talking more from a utopian, school of thought, but no, this is important. Law, teaching, and medicine, three things that are really serious, and we need to think about them in different ways. So I would say the onus is on me as a teacher, not on anybody else. First of all, I have to make them understand. I have to get that buy-in. And for that, I have to really believe.
One last question for the day, ma'am. What is the long-term impact of positive education on students' lives beyond their school years?
That's a great question. And I think it actually has a long-term impact only, because the short terms are very mundane, but the long term is you become a better human being. You become a responsible citizen. You become a happy individual. You are morally more responsible. You are responsive. You are a good decision maker. You know how to deal with problems. You know how to deal with situations. And you can retain that calm inside you, which is your ultimate happiness. So that is what is the long-term impact if students are shaped up using positive education.
Wow, that's nice. Yeah, this is a very interesting also, and slightly, I was able to recollect the movie The Three Idiots, where the question was asked, how does the induction motor work? And that fellow says, "Drrr." So here there's a question, how to fill attendance?
I think VC sir has
Think about
already
it.
replied for that you need to be belonged. You need to feel like coming to the class every day. Attendance, that's the only way of giving attendance. But if my focus is somewhere else, then definitely I would not want to. And many students I've seen nowadays bunking because they have to complete projects, they have to complete. Why are we giving so many assignments and projects? 17 subjects sometimes in a semester. Why? I've heard of that also, right? Good institutes wouldn't do that. But why? Right? Why? What will they? Unfortunately, the learning is happening vertically, not happening vertically. It's happening horizontally. I know of 10 things, but I have no idea what those 10 things are. Why not study 4 subjects, but know everything about those 4 subjects? So I think more for the students, questions are more for us and the management, for the system, for governments, for policymakers. So what are we doing with our education is something that we need to sit down and check upon. So, and again, it's not just skills, it has to be backed by theory. So theory is equally important. So,
I think along with that, a bit of appreciation, students may ask questions, students may not be coming to classes. I think a small bit of appreciation management, if it is inculcated, though I know this is a troublemaker, but then a bit of appreciation will allow the student to know, oh, my teacher still feels good about me.
So I think belongingness takes care of the entire concept, because it's about connectedness. It is about, feeling belong. You are able to put up your voice. Somebody is there to listen to you. So no non-judgmental behavior. Connections with the student, meeting them where they are. Those kind of things are important. So like if you imagine, a small child is crying and you are saying, come here, and the child is not listening to you. You will not just sit down at your chair and say that, come here, come here, come here. You will go to that child, pat the child, maybe pick up the child and bring where you want to bring them. The same metaphor applies, right? You have to meet the student where they are, bring them from there. And saying all this doesn't mean I'm really so good at doing all of this. I'm an expert. No, I have my own shortcomings. I have my own pitfalls. But then at least if consciously I'm trying, I think that is also enough, because one day I'll succeed, right? So it applies to all of us. We all can have our shortcomings, but then if we want to really, where there's an intent, We will. So yes, of course, connectedness is something which is the answer to this question. We somewhere need to connect with our students. We don't need to be judgmental. I think the teenagers, the thing they hate the most is they hate the world because they think they all are judging them. Every time. Ye mat karo, wo mat karo, ye kyun kiya, why did you do this, why did you do that, why did you go there? They are fed up of these questions. Trust them, stop it, connect. And that doesn't mean that you have to just give in to whatever their whims and fancies are. No, no, no. But there are ways of, you are an adult, do it well, you can. And they will learn eventually. They have to.
But ma'am, one thing I would like to ask, at such point of time when students are also getting peer pressures,
Yeah.
they get some, they cannot control their anger, and then eventually they try to bunk the class. They do not pay attention, or they try to disturb the class, what we already covered. So at that point of time, even teachers will get angry. How can that be, they can handle their anger, because they are also human beings.
So the teacher needs to take it up after the class, because that means there's some pent up emotion that's happening and some addressal is required. Secondly, if you are a teacher who demonstrates everything she teaches upon herself. So for example, if I ask my students to be calm, if I ask my students to be non-judgmental, can I do that consistently as a teacher? If I'm doing that, student will develop some kind of trust in me. Suppose they come and open up to me, can I maintain that consistency by not judging them? If I can develop that relation with them, then probably they'll open up. And once they open up, it's time for me to actually guide them, mentor them. Now, this is very interesting, peer pressure. What I do as a teacher, I always take some time. Whenever I get the opportunity, I take that opportunity, I talk about life with my students. So they may not have asked me some questions, but I know what are questions which are important for their lives outside the classroom. And I try to address those questions. Then some students will walk up to me after the class and try to talk to me. That's also a way of building that connection, right? And peer pressure, I think it's important for us to teach in a manner where we also teach the students that we don't really need to compare with anybody. But for that, we also need not compare students amongst ourselves. Because what happens is when you say, oh, you've done the homework work so well, you are so good. You're not realizing you just said it out of emotion. And because the child really deserved it, great. But there are 50 other students who are also getting the impression, I didn't do so well. I was not that great. So, and there are so many other things, no? Appreciation day, you put up post-its on the board, appreciate everybody you want to. Teacher tries to appreciate almost everybody. That builds a positive environment again. And and for peer pressures, I really want to tell all the teachers, please pass on this message to your students. We are the best versions of ourselves, and we have to become the way better version of ourselves. So we are beautiful as it is. We are God's gift, right? Life is beautiful. We don't really need to sit and compare with anybody. And somebody is not accepting us because we are not like them. That means they are not the people we should be with. Because anybody who loves you will never want to fold you the way you are not. They will accept you for who you are. So pass on this message to your students that they should believe in themselves. They should embrace themselves, their own truths. And I can go on and on and on. There's so much I can talk about. So I'll just stop.
And just one question, and both the participants who have asked it in a slightly different flavor, but the question is very similar. So we have Swayambar Jha who has asked this, basically in terms of anger management. How can we develop our anger management in the classroom? And so is the question from Kalyani Samal. How can we control our anger in the disturbing class?
In the disturbing. Just count. I think counting will help. Instant or there's nothing else, right? I mean, so there are so many anger management techniques, breathing exercises, practicing mindfulness, going for a walk, counting 1 to 100, right? Begin with 1 to 10, counting 1 to 100. But they are all like over a period of time and so many, right? But what you need to do is at that particular moment, you just have to count. Either you count or on a sheet of paper, scribble. That's all that you can do, which is not showing the other person what you are up to. But don't repress anger. Anger repression will not help. That will be explosive. Passive aggression, aggression is not helpful at all. So you are very quiet on the face, but there's a ocean whirling up inside you, will not help. Important is, but yeah, you can delay it. You can just say, I'll not think about it now, I'll think about it later. Another quick, easy recipe is when somebody is making you angry, you're really losing it out. Think of what soothes you. So if a beautiful lake soothes you, just look at that person, visualize a lake. So you're not looking actually at the person, but you are visualizing a lake. There's nothing which is making you angry anymore. Those are some quick, things that you can practice. But of course, anger management in itself is a whole intervention and requires some expert advice. So visit a counselor otherwise. I think that would be helpful.
I think one last question from Amit sir. How to deal with introvert student with positive education?
Don't disturb them. Don't force them. Don't push them. Talk to them separately. Understand their needs. And accordingly decide where do you want to place them in group activities so that you ensure that they will be participating, they will open up. And so be a little sensitive with them. They are not different people that you have to really have different technologies or techniques to deal with them. No, they're just introverts. It's not like they will just stand up and speak. You will have to maybe ask them to speak. If they don't want to, probably you'll have to give them some space and time. So, yeah.
So one more from Ms. Valina Das. Can affirmation in the class be helpful? If so, then how often should we go for?
Positive affirmations are certainly good. There is no number, like I cannot tell you twice a day or thrice a day. It doesn't work that way. But look at other things as well. It shouldn't be fake. It shouldn't be unnecessary. It should be very authentic and genuine, because genuine is only the one that will connect. If you keep on doing, students will also realize there's some other thing happening here. So, but yeah, I mean, have those appreciation days, say once a week or once in a month, whatever you decide. You know your students better, and accordingly you can customize.
Great. Over to you, Bhairavi.
That was a wonderful session, ma'am. Almost we are done with the questions. We would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. K.N.B. Krishnamurthy sir, our Vice Chancellor, for gracing us with his invaluable insights. Our sincere appreciation goes to Dr. Tithi Bhatnagar ma'am, who generously shared her expertise despite her busy schedules. A special acknowledgement to the esteemed principals and dedicated teachers whose commitment to join us today for this webinar is truly commendable. Furthermore, all our heartfelt thanks to our cluster team from across India. Their meticulous efforts have ensured the successful assembly of all the participants for these significant sessions. I would like to inform e-certificates will be shared with all the registered participants within next 2 to 3 working days. Kindly bear with us, and your suggestions and feedbacks will be always welcome. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And we look forward to such more interesting sessions. Every alternate Saturday, we're going to have a virtual session, and it will be really honored if all of you can be a part of it. There's a lot of learning that we get from this, and I'm sure from our esteemed speakers, there's a lot of learning that you as a principal, you as a teacher can inculcate and try and create some best practices for your schools. The difference between two schools are not the buildings or not the smart classes. It's the teacher and the principal that exist over there. And the more you are going to make it interesting, the more difference you're going to add to your day-to-day activities. You will be motivated to go to your, to your place of work. And if you are motivated and you see every day as a new opportunity, your students are going to enjoy it. So people who have been asking how to fill attendance, don't worry about attendance. You be attentive, you make the difference to your attendance in the class. You see that your class is going to come. As the Vice Chancellor sir said, he used to never take attendance when he used to teach. Because I even remember in one of the forums the Vice Chancellor was saying, in one of the exams, he allowed the students to carry their books.
You have open book exams.
It
Yes.
was an open challenge to the student that you get what book you want, but you attend the examination. And believe me, students were actually caught saying that, oh, I'm still not able to figure out where to look at the answer for this particular question.
Yeah, open books are tougher than closed book exams.
So that's the way when that you are so confident about yourself, and that actually makes a lot of difference. So as teachers, as principals, the best thing is to keep innovating yourself. And we actually look forward to such innovative topics being suggested by our panel of speakers, panel of people from the industry, or when very, very senior academicians. So look forward to the cluster people interacting with you and seeing what is the next topic from 2 weeks from now. And we'll be happy to have all of you as a part of our next webinar. So Dr. Didi Bhatnagar ji, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having
Sincere thanks to the Vice Chancellor sir for his time also. And to the entire STIP team from Dayanand Sagar University, and of course Ms. Bhairavi, for your time and the wonderful way of organizing this. We look forward to seeing you 2 weeks from now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.